Isn't you are chair?
Yeah. Good. Yeah. Hello everybody. Welcome to Vale Whitehorse District Council's Cabinet meeting today on the 17th of April 2026. My name is Councillor Thomas and I'm chairing the meeting here in Abbey House, Abingdon. I don't have any further announcements really. I think we all know the emergency routine, so I won't repeat that. But welcome you all here today in the room and online. Do we have any apologies?
We had apologies from councillors Emily Smith and Helen Pickett.
Everybody else is in the room. Minutes. Has everybody had a chance who was present to look at the minutes of the last meeting? Yeah. Are we all happy to agree with those minutes? We don't have to vote on them.
No, that's okay.
And that's fine. Thank you. I will sign them after the meeting. Declarations of interest. Can I ask if anybody has any interest to declare? Pecuniary, non-pecuniary? No. Thank you very much. Item 5, urgent business. I don't think there's anything I know of. Is there anything? No. Thank you. And public participation. I don't believe we have anybody registered.
No one registered.
Thank you. So, recommendations and updates from other committees. We did have a note, didn't we? Did you remind us of that? We can cover it.
Okay, 1 second. So I'll just that out for you. The scrutiny committee met on the 23rd of March 2026 and they considered at the Heart of the Vale annual delivery plan 2026-27, which is what one of the items you're looking at today. Their recommendation was that the scrutiny committee notes the annual delivery plan for 2026-27, which is underpinned by the council plan 2025-29. Members expressed concern for the future of ongoing projects in the run-up to and during local government reorganisation. The cabinet member and officers were recommended to provide them more quantitative and clearer measures.
Thank you. And we had already noted an item about the beacon, hadn't we?
Yes, that's right. It was a scrutiny specific report and we passed on I passed on the message about what they recommended last time.
Thank you. Yeah. So nothing further to note. Is everybody happy with that? Thank you very much. So, without any further ado, we will go on to item number 8, budget monitoring, April 2025, December 2025. And that's being introduced by Councillor Collins. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. So, excuse me. This report reviews the Council's revenue and capital expenditure performance against budget during 2025-26 to the end of month 9, which is December. Cabinet will recall that the budget for 25-26 was agreed by Council on the 12th of February 2025. The net revenue budget, as outlined in paragraph 4 of the report, was set at 24.8 million. This has increased to 25 million, the increase reflecting the carry forward of unspent one-off project budgets from the years 24-25, on the year 24-25. In terms of revenue, as explained in paragraph 5, table 1, the forecast is for an underspend on service expenditure of just over £0.74 million. Investment income is expected to exceed budget by 2.1 million, giving a total forecast revenue underspend of 2.9 million. There are likely to be some budget carry forward requests at year end, and these will be firmed up in the coming weeks. The in-year forecast underspend, along with the previous year underspends, have largely been allocated to previously agreed and committed expenditure, such as local government reorganisation. On capital, the budget approved programme at the end of December was, as shown in paragraph 24, £25.1 million, against which 8.2 million have been spent. The capital programme continues to be reviewed and challenged. I recommend that Cabinet notes this report.
Thank you. Coleman, does anybody have any comments or questions?
A little comment from me on paragraph 16. It notes that the recycling budget was forecast to be overspent by about £100,000, and that's largely due to a reduction in recycling last year. My understanding from officers is that's mostly due down to garden waste, which counts as recycling. It gets collected and recycled into compost, and the reduction in recycling is largely down to the weather last year, really. So it's nothing really.
The weather.
Yes. Essentially,
The waste is lighter.
It was drier, it grew less, and
Yeah.
therefore less of it went to the bin.
I mean, we had that from all the farmers, didn't we? Because they couldn't. There was no grass to harvest grass, but yeah.
But budgets is nothing to really worry about. It's just
That's good to know.
who knows what will happen with climate change, but that's a long-term thing rather than anything we can particularly anticipate for this coming year.
But that's good to know the explanation from that. Does it, Councillor Crawford?
Yeah, excuse me, it's hidden away a little bit within paragraph 36, where we talk about the average rate of return on our treasury deposits exceeding some benchmark by quite a lot, actually. It might only look like 0.5%. This actually means that we've got about 12% more income than we would have done had we only got the benchmark, and that's 12% of quite a significant deposit base. So I think we should just maybe thank the guys that are managing our treasury deposits for doing so well against the market, because that has made a significant contribution to the overall net position of the surplus that we're talking about in the conclusion of the report later on. So well done to them, and keep it up, guys.
Yeah, thank you. It's good to know. Any further comments?
So if I may, then, if there are no questions from Cabinet, I'd just like to add on my thanks for the report that's been generated. And I think I've probably said this most times, but it's not just the work on the report; it's the underlying work that goes to throughout the year to do this. And finance is one of those tricky areas. We do have, I would say, a small number of specialists who are able to do the detailed work, and it's thanks to them and then the support they receive from their colleagues that mean that we're in the position we are. Clearly, the conflict in the Middle East at the moment is having an effect against budget, which is not really included in this, but it will be for the final piece that we need to look at. Just broadly, it's likely, I think, to maintain the higher level of interest. So I don't think interest rates are going to come down from what I've been reading into. These are my personal thoughts. So I should say I'm not a financial advisor. The interest rates are likely to stay high, but obviously that then is offset by the increase in inflation and the increase of cost of services, in particular fuel, as we all know, for our own household budget. So there is going to be quite a lot of work to make sure that we understand the effect those are going to have as we come up to the end of the financial year. But thanks so much indeed to officers. Really appreciate their work.
No, I you stole my thunder, so obviously I was going to say the same. And no, it's a very well put together report, and it has generated already a lot of discussion and appreciation to officers for that report. So we're noting that. That's right. Is everybody happy to note that report?
Agreed.
Thank you. On to item number 9, the Housing Delivery Strategy Update and Action Plan. Councillor Crawford.
So the report before the Cabinet today outlines the Council's approach to housing delivery and performance over the last 12 months and our plan for the year ahead. It's designed not only to inform the Cabinet, but also a wide range of internal and external stakeholders, including, in particular, housing associations, developers, landlords, tenants, and indeed the general public. Appendix 1 shows last year's action plan and progress on its delivery. It reflects the work on the new local plan, which underpins the approach to general housing growth and how we can deliver more social and affordable housing. It also reflects the continued work of the Council to grow its own stock which is doing so to support temporary accommodation. Not only is the growth in property numbers important, but also how we ensure that we provide a safe, secure and compliant landlord service that's well communicated to accommodation users. More information on this will follow shortly through our housing landlord position statement. This appendix also provides a wide range of information about the housing market in our area in general, including the performance of housing associations, state of the rental market, and the work that council is doing to support community housing trusts. Appendix 2 sets out the plan for the year ahead with a continuation of the work in many areas. Local government reorganisation limits how many long-term developments we can do, but we plan to continue working hard to deliver and run through the tape over the next 2 years. Appendix 4 is the refreshed strategy itself. The current housing delivery strategy was originally dated to end in 2024, but since its inception, the council's focus has always been on an action plan and the delivery of important pieces of work across a number of areas. However, considering LGR, it's appropriate to formally extend the existing strategy through to 2028, which we think will provide stability and continuity during the transition period. The presented version takes the original agreed strategy and refreshes data and legislative changes, which are significant, but maintains the overall strategic approach set out originally in 2022. Delivery will continue to be through the annually agreed action plan and will be monitored on an ongoing basis. So overall, this report shows the continued focus of this council on one of the key objectives of our current corporate plan, and that we are focused on continued delivery and support for those organisations that can deliver more high quality, locally provided and affordable housing. So I recommend this report to the Cabinet.
Thank you, Councillor Crawford. Yeah, but I mean, I do appreciate this report, and it's brilliant, and I commend our efforts as a council to provide affordable housing to all our residents who are in need, and very appreciative of this report. Does anybody have any comments or questions? Councillor Clay.
One from me. There's a bit of a potential inconsistency here in the sort of the need for various different silo properties. So in the future projected needs 2021 to 2041, the joint housing needs assessment, that suggests, which is on page 10 of the individual report, or page 30 of the overall pack, it suggests that one bedroom properties are only 12% of what's needed, and the vast majority are 2 or 3 bedroom properties. But then if you look a bit further down at where the real demand is, so for example, the housing needs registry, page 19 of the individual report, actually the vast majority of the need is in 1 bedroom properties. And that seems a bit out of sync to me. Is that significant? I can see Paul's hand just come up.
Yeah, I'll let Paul answer that, but that's the market. Right. I think the cynic in me might say that the developers make more money out of bigger houses. Paul, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Cabinet, and thanks for the question. The reason for the difference is that the housing needs assessment is what's undertaken looking across all housing across the district and the development of all housing and the potential future need, whereas the other figures are looking at just what's on the housing register and what we're seeing in homelessness. So obviously they're different cohorts of people, and that's why you do get that inconsistency. And what we try and do, and Jamie is on the call who pulls this together, and he works with developers and RPs, is how we try and balance those figures. So we're trying to deliver for the future needs that the housing needs assessment identifies, but also trying to address the current issues that we've got on the housing register. So we ultimately want to try and see a balance, because people who are in 1 beds today might not be wanting a 1 bed, but might need a 2 or 3 bed in 5 or 10 years' time. So we do understand that there are what looks like inconsistency, but it's actually coming from two different sources of data and looking at 2 different things.
Helpful, thank you.
Any further questions? Comments? Sorry,
Yeah, so first question, I've got two. The first one's in the background, and we talk about that, and I'm sure this is appropriate, that the strategy and the action plan is cross-service with input from a number of the service areas. And my question though is that is right, that is correct, I'm sure, is clearly someone should still be responsible. It says the action plan recognised that the responsibility for delivery was cross-council, the responsibility for delivering, but someone must be overall responsible. And my question is, who is that? I mean, I presume it's in the housing area.
Well,
Yeah. So this paper does pull together, and the housing delivery strategy and the action plan is picking up a number of themes. So it's got the plan, the local plan in there, and work that is undertaken by development and corporate landlord. So my team and Jamie is responsible for pulling together the information, but the responsibility for delivering the local plan obviously is with that team, and work on purchasing houses is with Andrew. So it is cross-cutting because it's showing all of the work together, but the responsibility will be with individual directors and their teams.
Thanks. And so the overall drive, though, of as defined the strategy is within your area, and then obviously the delivery of that is sent, as you say, from finance. Thank you.
Correct.
And my second question is in the updates on the action plan, the second bullet in paragraph 12. There's a bit of a dichotomy here where we have developers that are submitting deeds of variation because are unable to meet Section 106 obligations. I presume this is the affordability of delivering affordable housing, and then offset that against the statement that says that that some of the registered providers are now looking at 100% affordable housing in a development, which I just for my own education, I don't understand how those two things can be the same. How does a wanting to provide fewer affordable houses as a ratio proportion offset with saying, well, actually I want to do 100%? And then my supplementary to that is there a risk if we do go for 100%, we start to get the old council house type estate as opposed to the embedded affordable housing mixed economy, which is, I believe is a better system, but maybe I'm missing something on that.
Paul, do you have an answer for that?
Yeah,
Jamie.
but Jamie, I see he's got his hand up. He can probably explain better than me.
Yeah, I'll jump in here. Thank you for the question. A very important question as well. I think the very, very basic answer is some RPs are only looking for those 100% schemes because they can access Homes England funding. So therefore it fits their financial model better, and therefore they switch their attention to that. Whereas if they're just taking on Section 106 stock as standard, that would have to come from their own pocket and they'd get no subsidy towards that. So that's why we're seeing that change. It has been manageable to date. We have managed to solve most issues, but I do see it cropping up again and again in the future, so it's something to be mindful of. And then the second question on 100% schemes and how that sort of fits in with our wider principles of having mixed and balanced communities. Again, it's not a straightforward answer and a very, very difficult question, but we've always said that we will deliver the Section 106 units, and anything outside of that is a risk that the RP takes on. What we say is that there has to be a mix of tenure in those additional units, so it's not just say 100 social rent units next door to each other in one corner. We want to see that mix of tenure come through, so there's some purchase products in there. But it's something to be mindful of, especially now with the advent of all that Homes England funding, and that we're probably going to get future requests for this. So we work quite closely with our planning colleagues where possible to try and sort of influence the tenure split. But yeah, I don't think there's a silver bullet answer for that right now because it's quite a new issue.
Can I just add to that? James is absolutely right, and it's a consequence, I think, of the Homes England policy or the government's policy about this, who are encouraging 100% schemes. That doesn't fit within the hourly cost, but that is the case, and we have to live with it. I'm certainly aware of one scheme, a major scheme we launched many years ago, where it was a 40% affordable housing, and then housing associations, because the market was so slow, ended up buying another 40%. So it went to off on the private, on the private market, and that particular development is now 80% affordable or social housing, and it has created issues, to be honest.
Right.
So, although obviously very much support more money going into affordable housing, I'm not keeping up on the strictures that the new initiatives are likely to deliver, to be honest. But we are well.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you, Jamie. I mean, I think we all understand there's a requirement for more housing, but it needs to be appropriately delivered housing, but that goes back to the point about the size of the properties and also the location, and also then I think the mixed economy. But our policy has not changed, so that's good. Thank you very much indeed. Appreciate that.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Paul. Does anybody have any further questions or comments?
My comment from there, it's really encouraging to see all the retrofitting work that's going on by the RPs. It's really fun to see that. There's one exception of one who hasn't responded yet, but for those who have, it seems like they're really steaming ahead. So it's fantastic to see.
That's very positive. Yes, well, I'd like to thank every officer who's been involved in this, and Jamie and Paul in particular. And are we happy to accept the recommendations? And do we need a vote on this one?
If you would it be all right if you read them out?
It's fine, so I can do that.
Go on.
Just have to find it again. Apologies. I haven't quite got the hang of ModGalv in terms of.
Take a look at mine.
Oh yes, please.
Can you type out as we go? So
Oh, fabulous. So recommendations that we're looking at today. That Cabinet A notes the latest progress against the Housing Delivery Strategy Action Plan 25-26, undertaken by a range of officers across the council. That B adopts the updated Housing Delivery Strategy 2022 to 2028. C reviews and adopts the proposed action plan for 2026-27. And D delegates to the Director of Housing and Environment, in consultation with a Cabinet Member for Property and Housing, the ability to make minor amendments to the strategy and action plan documents as required. Do we have a proposer? Councillor Crawford and a seconder. Councillor Clegg, and are we all agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. So to go on to the next item, which is going to be introduced by Councillor Paulson at the Heart of the Vale Annual Delivery Plan 2026-27.
Thank you. The purpose of this is to seek Cabinet's approval for the Annual Delivery Plan 26-27. Sets out our activities that will be taken to address the priorities and objectives that have been set out in our council plan 2025 to 29. That was adopted back in February last year, which sets out our vision and strategic priorities and forms a key part of our council policy framework. And annual delivery plans underpin all this and sets out our key activities. It isn't a comprehensive and exhaustive list of everything we do. There's a lot of individual service area delivery plans that build up to this. This is just an overarching theme, and it's a showcase of stuff that we are, shows how we're delivering it and why we're delivering it and measuring how we deliver it. I would explain that we saw the first of our annual delivery plans slightly later in the council year just gone, and we've moved it earlier this year so that it actually fits in very neatly with our budget setting exercise, so it aligns with our medium-term financial plan. It also is aligned with the senior management team's 3-year priority work programme. So the idea is that it meshes neatly, that everything is in step. We're not sort of looking back at it at 6 months difference and saying, I think we put that money aside in the budget for this, and did we, didn't we, and were we agreed on that or not? So we're avoiding going over ground repeatedly. Another highlight to mention to you is that we now have our annual delivery plan performance dashboard launched in October. So far, this is accessible to members and staff. We are working on a publicly accessible summary of it, a view of it, rather than the whole detailed thing. One thing, you will see the delivery plan itself as the appendix to this report. We've worked very hard within the team to bring more quantitative measures, rather than a narrative on every single point. So it is, yes, no, we'll also categorise it where it's our own direct action, that's the target, or the megaphone for influencing, and the handshake for where we're working in partnership. It's not just the activities that we can deliver ourselves, it's what we can do in cooperation with our communities, other council partners, other partners, regardless. Things that we really ought to mention is that there will no doubt be questions about how it meets with local government reorganisation. We have to have the council plan for our plan period regardless of LGR, but as I'm sure colleagues will know, we're now limited to what new projects we can bring online that will last beyond the point at which we no longer exist. So I'll leave it there, because I could talk on this all day, and people probably not want me to. So
Well, that was clear.
happy to take any questions.
you,
I know we've got
Councillor.
officers on the call to take any questions.
I believe Nick Bennett has an addition to introduce to us. If it comes up mute.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, sorry, I'm struggling a bit with a cold as well, so I might not be very clear, but I'll do my best. Leader, I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak to you. I know a lot of what I'm about to say is well understood and known to Cabinet, but more detail is now becoming available on the subject of local government reorganisation and devolution. And I hope to be able to speak to you in order that your communities would also hear the messages that I'm about to give. And I thank you for that opportunity. So, Chair, the context of local government reorganisation and devolution is moving forwards as we come closer to the changes. The restrictions upon what we can undertake as an existing authority are becoming more impactive. Firstly, you'll recall that the government has issued a letter from the Secretary of State advising that existing authorities should start acting in a manner that reflects the coming of reorganisation. Those duties are increasing the nearer we come to the go-live date of 1st of April 2028. Secondly, we're also under an increasingly strong duty to consider the interests of the future residents of the coming authorities, to preserve the structures, assets and people who deliver for our communities, not only today, but into the future. The Council will need to make decisions mindful of not harming the ability either to create those new authorities or of tying the hands of those new authorities. Sorry. Members will be aware from recent guidance of the wider processes around the period to the election of the new council, which is often referred to as the first transition period. Within 14 days of the structural changes order, those processes will create the new authority. The processes to create the new authorities will be underway. This has led to questions, including in this meeting, about what the council should do working through to that new authority. The Oxfordshire Structural Changes Order is expected to be implemented shortly after the local election scheduled in May 2025. Whilst we do not know that decision, nor do we have sight of the Structural Changes Order and related directions from government, we can see what has been provided to other councils, in particular Surrey councils, whose shadow councils elections are taking place at the same time next month, and with their new councils going live in 2027, so a year earlier. This is helpful to us as officers in advising you, and allows myself as monitoring officer and Mr. Hewins as the Section 151 officer to provide you with clear directions as a cabinet about what restrictions and further freedoms the council will be subject to. So what you will be able to do and what you won't. The council, and I want to emphasise this, the council will continue to be able to deliver its statutory services and complete existing and formalised contractual arrangements to deliver them. If new statutory duties were given to local authorities by Parliament, then the council will be required to fund and run those services pending reorganisation. New non-statutory services which the council has already built into budgets can continue in their existing form if you as a cabinet continue to choose to do that, and if full council continue to agree budgets in future budgetary processes. The community you serve will continue to be supported tomorrow in the same way that it was yesterday and is today. However, the council is becoming more restricted, as it will not be able to spend larger sums on new non-statutory work. This includes significant changes to those areas. So, whilst there is some scope for minor spend, the professional judgment of the statutory officers assessing the government's directions is that will be limited to spends of up to 100,000 of non-capital spend on any element of non-statutory work. Even then, such new projects will require careful consideration as to whether resources will deliver those changes without significantly impacting the efforts to prepare the organisation and for devolution. Nor will the council be able to make changes which cause a significant negative impact upon the budgets being passed forwards to the shadow authority. Oh, dear me, sorry. As officers work cross-regionally to match services and establish the baselines of future authority structures, changes that we make to how we operate will need to be as limited as possible. This limitation of spending and activity will mean that even opportunities may need to be delayed or lost for that period. This is sadly unavoidable. This restriction will loosen once the second transition period happens, as this existing council will be able to take direction on major strategic matters from the shadow council potentially. But the period from the structural changes order to the election of the new council will be a time of great restriction for this council and all predecessor councils across the country. We have to be realistic about that, I'm afraid. Capital spending will also be restricted from this point. After discussions with Mr. Hewins, we consider that a maximum of £1 million could be spent on any capital project going forwards, any new capital project. Again, if such a project has a significant impact upon the shadow authority, then the council will be unable to take forward that project at this time. So there is some movement, but you are going to be significantly restricted to where you were in the past. Finally, even if not caught by the capital limit I mentioned a moment ago, disposals of land are not able to be made at this time without a specific detailed legal assessment being carried out against the statutory controls in that area. Chair, that's all I really wanted to say. I know it's not a very positive message in some ways, but it does at least give you some clarity that the restrictions that we've been saying for some time will be coming are now firming up. And I'm afraid that it will have an impact on many of the activities of the council in the coming 18 months until the vesting of the new authorities. Chair, I'm struggling with my voice, but I will be happy to answer any questions that your cabinet have.
Thank you, Nick, and I do sympathise because I've had this very same cold, and if you're at the beginning of it, it goes on for quite some time and you lose your voice. Yes, thank you. And just as a starter, I mean, that is a lot of detail there, and I really appreciate it. And it's not for the first time, even in this meeting, that we've discussed the implications of LGR. So I think it's really good that we've had that reinforced now. And I was going to suggest, if possible, and I'm sure it has already, but if we could reiterate that to all members in a summarised form, perhaps, just to give the basic facts, that would be great if we could do that. I know there are questions and comments around the room, so having you introduced, Councillor Crawford, Councillor Crawford has a comment or question. Yep.
Shall I go first?
Yes, please do.
Thank you. Thanks for that, Nick. I didn't like to hear it, but thank you anyway. The £1 million capital spend, from the way you described it, it sounds like that is a self-imposed limit. I just wondered in a second if you can confirm that. But my main question, I suppose, is that we have quite a substantial number of Section 106 monies that we're sitting on, which will expire. And if we delay the work or trying to spend them, that puts them in greater jeopardy. And we certainly have some projects that we are midway through, and I'm thinking maybe particularly, for example, of the Learn Port Wantage, where the spend is going to be more than 1 million. And I just really wanted to understand, A, is the 1 million self-imposed? And if it is, why is it only 1 million? And secondly, what are the consequences on those time limited Section 106 monies?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Crawford, and these are key questions. So, dear me, sorry. The letter from the minister said a little while ago that we should start treating ourselves as being subject to a Section 24 notice. The notice that I explained previously to this cabinet is going to set out the detail, and that will be hard red lines about spending decisions included in that. Now we can start. We've started to see what the other councils are being told to do, and we can compare. And I previously gave advice that I suspected this would be the level where it would be, and that is being confirmed. So self-imposed, I think, is not the phrase I would use. It is definitely, there is a professional judgment that has gone into that from Simon and myself in assessing where we should be advising you so that you can be within the government's advice on that area. That is going to be a starting point. There may be a minor amount of flex, but if you're looking at 1 million, that's probably the right way to go. If it goes over that, then either Simon or I, or both of us with the chief executive, will be having to give you further specific advice about that individual case. Now, you mentioned 106 monies. Mr. Hewins and his officers are already looking at that, along with obviously planning colleagues. But work that's already in progress, programs that are already ongoing, can continue to be run, as I tried to emphasise in my presentation, and that includes existing work towards 106 projects. However, there may well be cases which will slip through that net just because the inability to get us to a point where the spend is achieved within the time. The Section 24 notices are going to be fairly soon coming our way, and then that will be an absolute red line. At the moment, this is an emphasis of the need to focus ourselves, and the 1 million is the best guidance we can give you of where you should be and must be focusing yourself. So self-imposed, I'm not sure is the right phrase. It's the best judgment we've got of what is the correct level for you to be spending on. If you're midway through a project, 106 or otherwise, we will continue with that. We'll be able to continue to apply the budgets in the same way. And Mr. Hewins can explain that more than I. But you're fine for that. It's the newer things or the projects which aren't yet at the stage where the pieces of the jigsaw haven't been brought together. Oh, I see he's coming in.
Yeah, Simon.
Take myself off mute. The other point I'd make, I suppose, is the difference between 106 is where we have discretion on how we spend the money, and 106 is where we don't. And if I think about what I'd be prepared to stand up and justify to a future authority, if we've got a 106 agreement that requires us to spend a sum of money in this way and there's no discretion over it, personally, I'm not really seeing that we should be not getting on with that. That needs to be tested, I think, but there is a distinct difference between those where we have no, it's already been, in many ways, a decision to spend that money in that way was taken when the planning document was agreed. We're just enacting it. So I'm less concerned about those sorts of agreements other than ones where there's more discretion with us on how they could be spent and who they could be given to. I think those would definitely still fall within the realms of what Nick's talking about.
Thank you, Simon. Does anybody have any? Councillor Fulsham.
Thank you, and I want to thank senior officers for those very helpful expansions and explanations. I did want to highlight to colleagues that we do have several measures that specifically report beyond April 2028. In particular, there's the Great Western Park Health Centre, which is due for completion in 28-29, and also the number and trajectory of homes delivered in the Didcot Garden Town, which is a joint South and Vale reporting, which is targeting 15,500 homes by 2031. So we are progressing these projects and we are reporting on them through the delivery plan.
Thank you. Yeah.
First, a request. So there was a lot of detail in there, but thanks, Nick, for that. Is that going to be published in the minutes so that we can have a written, so I can go through it in a bit more detail, so it's slower. Thank you for that. And the second one, and forgive me, you may have already answered this previously when you talked about Section 24. Do we have an indication of when we might get that Section 24 notice, i.e. when it becomes a little bit clearer what the government is going to expect us to adhere to?
There is a time limit of, I think, something like 2 weeks after the structural changes order. So once you get the minded to decision, that's when the Section 24s will come. I mean, I say a Section 24 like it's a one and done, but there may be more than one element of that, and that's happened with other authorities already.
And the announcement is when are we expect? You might not know this, Nick, but when are we expecting? Is it June or July?
It's end of June.
End of June.
Recess, yeah.
Okay, so hopefully sort of kind of mid-July we will have some clarity on Section 4 notices if they're going to be, well, they will be applied. Thank you very much, Steve.
Thank you, Nick. Yes, got your cold. Does anybody else have any further comments or questions about? I mean, we've talked about LGR significantly, but did anybody have anything to add about the report itself?
So hopefully being a positive now.
Yes.
So we the reporting system that we previously had was very much narrative based and expended a considerable amount of officer resource, particularly their time. Can I just ask now, if we got an indication, perhaps this is for Chief Exec, as to is this now seen as a better way and preferred option by the officers? It is for us, I think. I much prefer to see something delivered like this, but I just want to make sure it is it's scratching that little itch that we had for the officers as well.
Absolutely. I mean, I think Tim's on the call if he wanted to come in. If you want to, it's his team's done a lot of work, but we're more content that there's more quantitative figures in there that we can report against, that we can automate that through our dashboard and the systems we've put in place. So yes, we're more comfortable as well.
Excellent.
Yes, thank you. And just to confirm, yes, absolutely a better way forward. And this is what we've been wanting to work to for a good while. It's we're a lot more efficient in terms of with this, and we're hoping that it's giving you as members and also to the public a little bit more of that information without less of the narrative, but more of what we're actually about and what we're producing on a regular basis.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was simply my question. So, anything further about specific areas? I'm very happy. I think we all spent as members such a long time on this previous reporting system that anybody who experienced this voice is going to be so happy that it's changed, and the automation is brilliant, and that is just fantastic. So
I do have one other, and it's related to, so this went to scrutiny as well, and so I'm assuming that we had positive feedback from scrutiny in respect of how they received the information, and it was providing the right level of detail that they required.
Yes, I do want to pay tribute to scrutiny. Their input at the early stages of coming out with the new reporting format was invaluable. It felt like it was an old friend coming back to have sort of a year on's feedback from them. So yeah, they had a deep dive into it, and their earlier comments helped with the first iterations, and now we're coming at honing things, putting in new measures that actually key directly into some of our priorities, like not just leisure facility usage, but leisure facility usage drilled down to the level of by underrepresented and marginalised groups, so disabled or minority ethnic communities and so on, which actually keys into our priorities. So it's fitting the reporting, and it's going to be an iterative process. We'll get better at it. We'll be able to add on more things as we get the tools to bring those through.
Right. Thank you.
thank you very much. So if there's nothing further to add, we're being asked to approve the annual delivery plan. Do we need a vote? Oh, just as next recommendation to cabinet that cabinet approves the annual delivery plan 2026 to 27 appendix 1, which is underpinned by the council plan 25 to 27. Everybody happy with that? Happy to agree? Excellent. Thank you very much. So now we are on to item 11, proposed adoption of nature recovery on council-owned land policy, which will be introduced by Councillor Clegg. Councillor Clegg.
Thank you. Yes, you know, it's actually joint responsibility for this paper, but since Councillor Crawford has got, I think, 3 other papers to introduce, so
Yes.
I thought I'd save his vocal cords, especially as there's a horrible cold going around.
Yes, there is.
Just keep my voice out, so better preserve his voice. So the impetus for this paper is that for quite a few years now, we've been working with local community groups who could apply for a license to plant trees on land we own. The officer notes I have said this has been quite successful, but then notes that 671 trees have been planted since 2021, and that's important, quite successful to me. That sounds, I'd say, very successful, so I think there's a bit of modesty going on there. More recently, though, we've had requests from groups who want to do other kinds of nature recovery work, so, you know, those and so on. And the previous policy couldn't handle that. It was just about trees. So officers have been doing some really good work in sort of generalising the policy so that it's now about more diverse forms of nature recovery on land we have. And so rather than having to go through a bespoke application each time, they can just follow this new policy for any kind of nature recovery on our land. And yes, this is all very consistent with our targets to increase the amount of biodiversity on our land and nature recovery and so on, and also in encouraging local communities to get involved and you know, do that active work in helping maintain the biodiversity and so on. So not much more to say than that really. It's really just an improvement, sort of second iteration on an existing policy, which I think will make things smoother.
Whenever we discuss this paper, I think about this. There's one patch of land around the corner from me that we own, and it's just plain grass, a non-native shrub and 2 trees. And I always think this would be fantastic, but I'm not going to set up a group to try and do it, but I hope somebody does. Does anybody have any questions or comments on this?
Yeah, I think this is a really positive step. It's been great to see the success of the tree schemes. I know there's been a really good scheme here in Abingdon, and I know there's been plenty of others across the district. And I think it's a really good way of how we can use our resources without having to really do an enormous amount or spend very much money to enable other people to do things that are good for the community and good for the environment. So I think it's really positive. The tree scheme has worked really well, and I hope we'll see lots of other ideas coming forward. And as you say, there's lots of bits of land that could be adding to nature recovery and biodiversity, and also probably reducing a bit of roadside flooding as well at the same time, which it also achieves. So yeah, that's really positive, and thanks to the officers for doing the work on the policy.
Maybe I'll just step up that group then. Anybody else have anything? Councillor Wilson.
Thank you. I love this policy. I think it's a really good example of delivering what our communities want and need, and where there's a real passion for it. And I know we've benefited tremendously from partnerships with community groups like Abingdon Carbon Cutters and other bodies across the Vale. I wondered if officers had an impression of how small a community group could be that was taken in. Would sort of residents in a street or small area be able to take on some of the nature recovery stuff, not necessarily tree planting, but wildflower meadows and other such initiatives? I think
it's online, so he has an answer.
Thank you. Yeah. So provided the group has a form of constitution and insurance, it doesn't really matter the size of the group. And one of the first groups we're hoping to trial this on is actually a newly established group in the south of Abingdon who sort of looked at the areas around them very much in the way that the chair was talking about the area near her, and thought, oh, there's so much more that could be done here. So it's been designed to be flexible to allow newly established groups, small groups, to take advantage of it, and that's exactly what we're hoping to be able to do.
Thank you.
Does that actually
That does, yeah.
Any further points to raise? Thank you, Dom, and thank you for the work that has gone into this report. Yes, it is a very positive piece, as we said, and I am sure that we will be happy to approve it. Did anybody else? That's what you turn hands up.
No, I did have a question, which was over sort of the longevity of something. I think I read something here about times in the sort of 5 years or something, but I just want to make sure that we have, and I'm presuming it's down to some kind of legal agreement with the group, that were the land required to be reused for something else, that we're not putting ourselves into a legal position where continued use over a period of time, 10 years or something, then means it becomes a permanent meadow if we needed it to be used for something else. I'm sure that would be in the illegal agreement, but I'll probably just confirm that is the case.
Did somebody want to come in on that? Maybe Nick? Don?
So the agreements are set out for between 3 and 5 years. As at the end of each individual agreement, a group could come back to us and ask us if they could extend it for a further period of time. I think at that point, the council has the opportunity to consider whether that piece of land may have an alternative use that isn't consistent with what they're doing. So there is essentially a built-in breakpoint where we can review that after well, depending on a maximum of 5 years. So I think there is the opportunity to review the situation after a period of time and decide if our priorities had changed, that decision could change at that point. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I think it does. I mean, just from some of the work I do with volunteer groups, I just appreciate how long it takes to develop these things. And you know, 5 years sounds like a long time, but it's actually not. Not when you're trying to put some real meaningful change in. So, but as long as we have those clauses, and it looks like an organisation is then saying after, let's say, the first 3 years, they would like an extension for another 5 years. That's fine, but I guess then that gets reviewed after the 8-year point, and you know, so we're not tying ourselves to a commitment on doing something in perpetuity if there is a higher priority for that land. That's my concern. I think, and you've answered it, Don. Thanks.
Yeah, I think there's one other point is that all of the works that would be allowed under this are the works which are easily reversible. So if the group were to cease to exist or whatever, then it's straightforward for us to reverse that if we chose to do so, or we could choose to continue to manage it in the same way.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, assuming that there's a lot of research and due diligence on the original patch plan before it would be go into any scheme like this. So if that's it for questions or comments, I appreciate the discussion. That's really positive. So the recommendations and the Cabinet A, approves the new nature recovery and council-owned land policy to replace the existing policy for planting trees on the council land, and B, subject to approval of the policy, delegate authority to the Director of Development and Corporate Landlord in consultation with the Director of Policy and Programmes and the Director of Legal and Democratic Services to make minor amendments to the policy as required. Do I have a proposer for that? Councillor Clegg, and seconder, Councillor Crawford. Beat to it. And we're all agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. And we are on to item 12, the corporate asset management framework. And Councillor Crawford, back to you.
Indeed. So this report seeks Cabinet approval to adopt the corporate asset management framework for this council. The framework's a core element of the corporate landlord model implemented in April 25 and provides the strategic policy framework for how the council manages, maintains and makes decisions about its land and its buildings. It ensures asset decisions are aligned with Vale priorities set out in the council plan at the heart of Vale, supporting strong governance, value for money and long-term sustainability. Council land and buildings underpin service delivery, community infrastructure, regeneration, climate action and indeed income generation. A key component of the framework is the asset challenge process, which introduces a structured rolling review of all council-owned land and buildings. The process ensures consistent consideration of why assets are held, how they perform, what benefits they deliver, and whether they should be retained, invested in, repurposed or disposed of. Members should note that on the South Oxfordshire District Council side, the report was called into South Scrutiny Committee, and they resolved that within the asset challenge process, there should be two things. One, clearer emphasis on social and environmental consideration, and secondly, consultation with ward members, local communities and key stakeholders. Hence, there are some very minor changes to the original paper that was sent out last week. SODC of Cabinet approved the framework last evening following the scrutiny consideration. Officers satisfied that the framework before Vale Cabinet reflects this strengthened approach, with social, environmental and consultation requirements embedded in the asset challenge methodology. So in conclusion, adoption of the framework will provide Vale with a robust policy-led approach to asset management, which we've never really had before, to be honest. It supports delivery of the council plan, it strengthens governance and places the council in a strong position as LGR approaches. I therefore recommend that Vale Cabinet approves the corporate asset management framework. And in doing so, can I actually thank also officers, especially Adrian Butler, I'm not sure if he's on the call, for all the hard work in bringing this report forward. It's a culmination of actually many years of work, and it's great to see finally seeing the light of day. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Crawford, and I agree. It is a combination of many years of work, and I think this is it's great to have this, and just as a clear and robust strategy for our management of our assets. I remember and when I had your portfolio several years ago now, we were in the sort of early stages of beginning to get to grips of our assets, and I think there's been an awful lot of work to get to this point, and I do appreciate it. I'm grateful that you've also highlighted the amendments made by South Scrutiny, and just looking at those, I think that's a positive step. So I will share it open for questions and comments.
That's a comment from me. I think this is really good report. I'm particularly pleased to see this policy, this framework enables a sort of more proactive approach to maintaining our assets, particularly with the portfolio, within that parks and play areas and so on. And there have been examples in not too distant history of assets having to be closed because they were in poor state of repair, and then the council then had to think about how we were going to restore those. By following this new framework, we can actually monitor those assets more proactively and look for the external funding, for example, in advance of when is actually needed to minimise that downside. So I think this is absolutely excellent report, and I'm all for it.
Okay.
On page 18 of the appendix, it talks of the corporate property group, which is to be set up, which includes senior officers from across South and Vale. Is there any intent to have any member representation in that group? And how is the group going to report? Because previously it talks about cabinets, being decision-making bodies and such like. Does the CPG report direct to the cabinet, or does it have member input, or is the first time that any members of the council get to see something is at the cabinet level?
I think the answer to that is it depends on the decisions that are being made. The thoughts that the corporate property group come up with. There's a lot of what they might choose to do with it will be within delegated authority anyway.
Yeah.
Certainly there might be some things that come out of that group that do require, ICMD or cabinet or indeed council approval. Maybe Adriana can answer that more fully than me. That's my understanding, and there isn't an intention at this stage for members to sit on that group.
Yeah.
So it's more of an operational.
It's basically a coordinated way for officers to execute their delegated authorities, as Andy said. So it's not doing anything different or out from what would normally come to cabinet through the constitution.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments, questions? So, if there are, I'm trying to think what's the name. If there aren't any further questions or comments, I'd like to thank officers as Councillor Crawford has, particularly Adrian Butler, who I can see online. Thank you for bringing this framework to us today, and thank you for the amended version that we received as well. And so the recommendation before us today is that Cabinet adopts the corporate asset management framework attached as Appendix 1, which establishes the policies and strategies for the management of council-owned land and buildings as defined under the corporate landlord model. Are we all happy to agree that? Do we need a proposer and seconder?
Andy, if you wish.
Councillor Crawford?
Yeah, I will. No.
I'll be second.
No, Councillor Dawson. Seconding and all agreed. Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you. And I think this is a final item. I mean, I've had quite a diversity of subjects. Sometimes we always sort of set on one subject matter, but today we've been around quite a few cabinet members. So item number 13 is the property asset acquisition policy, and breaking what I've just said, it's going back to Councillor Crawford. So Councillor Crawford, can you introduce that?
I can. Well,
Thank you.
It struck me when this was being discussed over the last few months that we haven't got one at the moment, which is a bit weird, isn't it, really? Considering that, we have acquired significant property assets, Great Hazley being the largest one, but also various others, including council-owned housing. So that what this policy is aiming to do is to put the best practices that we've learned during those exercises into a more formal policy to help for the future. So the report presents the proposed property acquisition policy. It provides a clear and consistent framework for how the council acquires land and buildings in future, supporting transparency, good governance and sound decision making. Council has acquired assets in recent years to support housing delivery, service provision and indeed operational infrastructure. Where future if and when future acquisitions continue, it's essential that the signals are strategic, financially prudent, legally compliant and aligned with council priorities. And this policy aims to formalise best practice and reduces the risk. It supports the council plan and it aligns with the corporate landlord model and the corporate asset management framework, which we discussed earlier. It sets out when and why the council may acquire land or buildings, including for service delivery, for regeneration, for housing and estate rationalisation. And it ensures options appraisals, whole life costs and affordability are properly considered. The policy reflects the Prudential Code and the PWLB. We all use that nowadays, don't we? The Public Works Loan Board guidance, and excludes acquisition of commercial property purely for investment purposes. All acquisitions must be affordable within the MTFB and approved through the council's established financial governance processes. Climate and ecological impact are also considered at the individual transaction level. An quality impact assessment has been completed with no adverse impacts identified, and all acquisitions remain subject to the council's constitution, its financial procedure rules and member decision making. And although local government reorganisation is approaching, the council continues to acquire assets. In particular, we have, for example, housing that we have received partial funding from the government, which we're continuing to investment. So to approve the recommendation then is to approve the property asset acquisition policy and to delegate authority to the Director of Development and Landlord in consultation with other relevant directors to make any minor amendments where required. With that.
Thank you, Councillor Crawford. Do we have any questions or comments? I do think it's amazing to think that we haven't had a policy on this before. So I do appreciate this coming forward. Councillor Clay.
Thank you. I'm also very happy to see this report come to Cabinet. There's been a bit of a golden thread through quite a few of the reports that have come through today in this ambition to have either council-owned or council-aligned properties be EPC rating C or better, and that's included within this report, which is great to see. And we're already delivering on that in properties we already have, or we arrange for residents to go through if they're social housing and so on. On paragraph 8.2, there's a whole lot of criteria about criteria used in the decision-making process, and that includes the energy performance of the building. It notes that we have an ambition for all council-owned homes to have EPC rating C. But presumably, if we were looking at a property that didn't yet meet that EPC rating, then we would instead seek to check that it had the potential to reach the better rating, C or better, and that the cost of retrofitting it in order to meet that would be all funded within decision-making process. Is that correct?
Yes.
Or, yeah. So we wouldn't be just excluding.
Not necessarily. Clearly, this a decision is like when you arrive by a house, and then is the retrofit cost worth it when we know there's other products coming on the market that are already meeting the standards that we set ourselves. So it wouldn't necessarily be ruled out. So probably also wouldn't be the first choice to do.
The other thing is in terms of local government reorganisation, which is obviously something we've mentioned quite a lot this meeting. What are the implications for this acquisition now of any land going forward with local government reorganisation?
Is Nick still on the call?
Yes.
Yeah. Pretty much what he said.
Yes. I just want
clearly a number of the, for example, the pipeline properties that we're still in the process of purchasing for below the 1 million capital, and even if they were above it, or if we set a much lower limit, they would have to be justified. And my mind is that they clearly would be justified because it's government policy to hand indeed partial funding, so that would happen. Likewise, we're Great Hazy to come up tomorrow, rather than a couple of years ago. It's not the case that we wouldn't be able to invest in that, because clearly we need to for very good operational reasons.
Yeah.
That there might well be implications, but I don't think there'll be any implications that stop what we plan to do, as far as I can ascertain. Nick might want to say more.
Or maybe not, because
or maybe not. Or clarify it.
No, I think that analysis is pretty spot on, Councillor Crawford. I can't really add anything meaningful to it. There is uncertainty. There is going to be uncertainty on larger projects of this kind, and there may be unforeseen elements on particular cases. But I think that is a sensible way to go forwards with it. Is as you've just spelled out. Sorry, I'm going to start coughing again.
I think the waste depot is a really good example, because it's a statutory requirement to collect waste. That doesn't necessarily mean we need a depot, but the contractual program and policy that we had pre-decided we're going to go as being the best operational and probably the most cost effective included the requirement for a waste depot, and therefore we were on that route, and presumably we would say that was because we should continue because it was part of the statutory requirement to collect waste. And equally with provision of property, where that is, say, for example, to provide to stop the use of temporary accommodation. Again, it's our requirement to house people, and therefore we should be able to buy property to meet that requirement. So each case is going to be reviewed, but I think on those sort of things, and I generally believe that most of the high expenditure areas that we're looking at are to provide statutory requirements, because we're not council that's got lots of money that can do otherwise.
No, the example, the exception might be, for example, on leisure.
Yeah.
Where there's nothing conceivable that we would want to acquire some property for meeting our desires on the leisure needs assessment, but each of those will have to be looked at.
And the timing of that decision is not that we're saying we never need it. It's just that do we need to do it in the next 3 years? Yeah.
What I didn't do, actually, Chair, if I may, is to thank Karen. She's on the call. My eyesight's not terribly good at the moment.
I can't see.
Yes, she is. Both this one and previous papers and her team. So thank you very much, Karen, for all the hard work and bringing us to where we possibly should have been quite some time ago.
There's been
indeed before property was re-insourced from the external company that managed it. Says in inverted commas.
And we did. We've done a lot to get to this point. Adriana, did you want to?
Yeah, I'll just make a general point on policies. I think it's still, yes, we are operating in an LGR context, but it's still really important we continue to review our policies, update them, bring them to Cabinet for decision where they're either out of date or we've got gaps that we've identified. It's really important we have the strongest policy position possible going forward in GLGR. Now that's different from taking actions or decisions against the policy, which obviously needs to be in accordance with everything that Nick has just said under section 24. But having a strong policy position, it means that we as officers, it sets out your position on things, the approach that you want to take, and it means that in any discussions on a future authority, we take that position into the discussions against all the other policy positions of the other councils. So I think, Nick, you'd agree it's really important for us to have a strong policy position, and we can separate that from any actions and decisions you might take in accordance with that section 24 environment.
Yeah.
At least with the open and transparent work that we wish to do, so that people, they might not agree with the policy, but if it's written in the policy, then it's understandable. They'll be treated.
Oh yeah, that's very good point. Nick, did you want to add anything?
Just to say, in the note, you'll see the notes, and I know councillors will be looking at in more detail afterwards, but you're not there to cause harm to the future authority. And if you were to suddenly, as was mentioned earlier, pull steps which are required to deliver a depot or effective housing, that's itself harmful. So it's going to be case by case. The policy position, just for the record, that your chief executive said a moment ago, I also absolutely support that position. There has to be clarity, and that doesn't go away at this time.
Thank you. Yes, good point. Well made. Thank you, John. So any further questions or comments? So we can go to the recommendations. So the recommendations are A, to approve the property asset acquisition policy, and B, subject to approval of the policy, delegate authority to the Director of Development and Corporate Landlord in consultation with the Director of Finance, Director of Policy and Programme, and the Director of Legal and Democratic Services to make minor amendments to the policy as required. Councillor Crawford, are you happy to propose?
I'm more than happy to propose it.
Seconding anyone? Oh, I saw Councillor first. And is everybody happy to agree?
Agreed.
Thank you. So that brings us to the end of the agenda. I just wanted to note, it's the first time I think in all the time I've been in cabinet that I am the only female cabinet member in the room. Yes, I know. I was very happy to realise that as well. But yes, it's a testament to our diversity that usually there is quite a large female cohort within the cabinet, but not today. Yes.
Other names are available.
So I would be happy to close the meeting and thank you, officers in room and online, for everything you've done to get to this point. And thank you, members, as well. And I will call the meeting to a close. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.